Hello and welcome to Tuesday's shared reading of Street Child. So this is the day where we start reading the book properly, and it's a lovely day, so I thought I'd bring us outside. And we made some predictions yesterday about what was going on. Some of you saying he was running away. I'd say, well, we know he's turning around. He's running, we don't know what from. Now there is a dog there, but the dog is actually on a lead. So who has got the dog? So we shall find out. So just a bit of a pre-read to begin with, and just gives it a little context, the story. It says, "Tell me your story, Jim." "Jim Jarvis. Want to know who that is? It's me. That's my name. Only thing I've got is my name, and I give it away to this man. Barney, his name is, or something like that. He told me once, only I forgot it, see? And I don't like to ask him again. Mister, I call him, to his face, that is. But there's a little space in my head where his name is Barney." So I'm thinking straight away, who is this Barney? He keeps asking me things. He wants to know my story. That's what he tells me. "My story, mister? What do you want to know that for? Ain't much of a story, mine ain't." And he looks at me, all quiet. "It is, Jim," he says. "It's a very special story. It changed my life, child, meeting you." "Funny that, ain't it? Because he changed my life, Barney did. I can't believe my luck, and that's a fact. Here I am, food in my belly, and good hot food at that, and plenty more where that came from," he says. "And I'm wearing clothes that smell nice, and I don't have my holes in it, neither. And I'm in this room where there's a great big fire burning, and plenty more logs to put on it, so we just don't die off. And that's just me and him. The other boys are upstairs in their hammocks, all cosy in the big room we sleep in. And downstairs there's just me and him, special. I want to laugh. I'm so full of something that I want to laugh out loud. When I stuff my fist in my mouth to stop myself. Barney gives me that look, all quiet. Just tell me your story." "My story? Well..." I creep back to the fire for this. I hug my knees. I close my eyes to shut out the way the flames dance about and the way his shadows and mine climb up and down the walls. I shut out the sound of the fire sniffing like a dog at a rat hole, and I think I can hear someone talking very softly. It's a woman's voice, talking to a child. I think she's talking to me. "Oi, mister," I says, just whispering so I don't chase the voice away. "Can I tell you about my ma?" And then that leads us in to chapter 1. So think about the way Jim is speaking. Do we speak like that? Like, ain't it? Why does he speak like that? A mister. So maybe because where he's living, and the fact is that perhaps they didn't go to school, so perhaps they didn't get to learn proper grammar. We shall find out. Okay, so chapter 1 is the shilling pie. And shilling, so that was on my PowerPoint, so you should know what shilling is. Jim Jarvis hopped about on the edge of the road, his feet blue with cold. Passing carriages flung muddy snow up into his face and his eyes, and the swaying horses slithered and skidded as they were whipped on by their drivers. At last, Jim saw his chance and made a dash for it through the traffic. The little shops in the dark street all glowed yellow with their hanging lamps, and Jim dodged from one light to the next until he came to the shop he was looking for. It was the meat pudding shop. Hungry boys and skinny dogs hovered around the doorway, watching for scraps. Jim pushed past them, his coin as hot as a piece of coal in his fist. He could hear his stomach gurgling as the rich smell of hot gravy met him. He sounds hungry, doesn't he? But it does sound nice, that hot gravy. Mrs. Hodder was trying to sweep the soggy floor and sprinkle new straw down when Jim ran in. So just think about that. They're putting straw down on the floor. Do we do that? Do we do that in shops? Why is she putting straw down on the floor? You can run right out again, she shouted to him. If I'm not sick of little boys today, go on, get out. But I've come to buy a pudding, Jim told her. He danced up and down, opening and closing his fist, so his coin winked at her like an eye. She prized it out of his hand and bit it. Wonder why she bit it. Checking if it's real. Where did you find this little shrimp? She asked him. And stop your dancing. You're making me rock like a ship at sea, you are. Jim hopped onto a dry patch of straw. Ma's purse. And she said there won't be no more because that's the last shilling we got. And I know that's true because I emptied it for her. So make it a good one, Mrs. Hodder. Make it a big and lots of gravy. He ran home with a pie clutched to his chest, warming him through his cloth wrapping. Some of the boys outside the shop tried to chase him, but he soon lost them in the dark alleys, his heart thudding in case they caught him and stole the pie. That's awful, isn't it? So he's got this pie and other children want to steal it off him so they can eat it. At last he came to his home, in a house so full of families that he sometimes wondered how the floors and walls didn't come tumbling down with the weight and the noise of them all. He ran up the stairs and burst into the room his only family lived in. He was panting with triumph and excitement. I've got the pie! I've got the pie! He sang out. Shh! His sister Emily was kneeling on the floor, and she turned round to him sharply. Ma's asleep! Jim! Lizzie jumped up and ran to him, pulling him over towards the fire so they could spread out the pudding cloth on the hearth. So he looked at the hearth on the PowerPoint, what that was. They broke off chunks of pastry and dipped them into the brimming gravy. What about Ma? Asked Lizzie. She won't want it, Emily said. She never eats. So it's just my dog running around in circles at the moment. Lizzie pulled Jim's hand back as he was reaching out for another chunk. But the gravy might do her good, she suggested. Just a little taste. Well, stop shoveling it down so fast, Jim. Let Ma have it a bit. She turned round to her mother's pile of bedding and pulled back the ragged cover. Ma, she whispered, try a bit. It's lovely. She held a piece of gravy-soaked pie crust to her lips, but her mother shook her head and turned over, huddling her rug round her. So what's that telling us about the mum? She's all huddled up in rags. She doesn't want any food. What's going on? I'll have it, said Jim, but Lizzie put it on the corner of her mother's bed rags. She might feel better. She might want a bit later, she said. The smell might tempt her. I told you, said Emily. She don't want food no more. That's what she said. Jim paused for a moment in his eating, his hand resting over his portion of pie in case his sister snatched it away from him. What's the matter with Ma? He asked. Nothing's the matter, said Emily. She chucked a log on the fire, watching how the flames curled themselves around it. She's tired, is all, Lizzie prompted her. She just wants to sleep, don't she? But she's been asleep all day, Jim said. And yesterday, and the day before. Just eat your pie, said Emily. You heard what she said. There's no more shillings in that purse, so don't expect no more pies after this one. She'll get better soon, Lizzie said, and then she'll be able to go back to work. There's lots of jobs for cooks. We'll soon be out of this place. That's what she told me, Jim. Will we go back to our cottage? So that's just my dog barking. Jim asked. Lizzie shook her head. You know we can't go there, Jim. We had to move out when Father died. Eat your pie, said Emily. She wants us to enjoy it. but the pie had grown cold before the children finished it. They pulled their rag pile close to the hearth and curled up together, Jim between Emily and Lizzie. In all the rooms of the house, they could hear people muttering and yawning and scratching. Outside in the streets, dogs were howling, and carriage wheels trundled on the slushy roads. So slushy roads, what's that telling us about what the time of year is? Jim lay awake. He could hear how his mother's breath rattled in her throat, and he knew by the way she tossed and turned that she wasn't asleep. He could tell by the way his sisters lay taut and still, each side of him, that they were awake too, listening through the night to its noises, longing for day to come. So Jim, his sisters and his mum are crammed into one room, which was quite common in Victorian times, especially in the cities. And they had a pie to share between all of them. And just, what does that tell us about the living conditions in the Victorian times in cities? Not for rich people. Were Jim and his family rich? How do you think they're going to cope? What do you think is going to happen next with his mother, who's ill? Have a think. Okay, so I'm just going to go onto the worksheet now.